Joe Rand with Better Homes and Gardens Rand Realty, and we are proud to present our special report on the spring market 2019, 10 years after the 08-09 correction. What we've been doing is we've been looking at 7 trends to watch for the spring market of 2019, giving you an idea of what to look for as in this market going through the next few months. And our 7th trend, which is an interesting one, is that homes, in our opinion, are more affordable than at any time in the past 30 years. And that requires some explaining. So let me explain what I mean by that. When people buy a home, it's not a function of price. It's a function of the monthly payment they have to make to buy that home, which is a function not just of price, but on the interest rate. So, if interest rates go down, you can afford more home. Even if the prices go up, you can afford it with the same income because your monthly payment will go down because rates went down. So how we're measuring affordability very narrowly in this sense is the monthly payment that you have to make for your mortgage to buy an average priced home in that market. So what we did was to measure this over time and the changes over time is we took the average price of a home in a particular market for each year for which we have data, which in like Westchester, we have it going back to 81. In Bergen, we have it going back to like the mid 1980s. Most of our markets, we have it going back to the early 2000s. Okay. So take the average price of that home in that year, then take the average interest rate that was prevailing in that year, that same year, which we can then use to calculate using the interest rate and the average sales price. We can use to calculate the monthly payment that would be required to buy that home. And then we control for inflation, because if you don't control for inflation, none of it makes sense. You have to look at it in 2019 dollars. So we're looking at how the monthly payment as a function of price and interest rate has changed over time for as long as we have data. All right, let's look at what we found. This is northern New Jersey, which goes all the way back in Bergen County to 1985. And you can see that the monthly payment in that time, let's just look at Bergen County for a moment. 85 to 87, it goes up. That's a function of average prices going up. Then in 87, really through 98, it goes down. And that's largely a function of prices going down, although interest rates also went down during that period. Then in the late 90s, all the way to the mid 2000s, it starts to go up. And that's a function of prices going up, even though rates were low, although rates did continue to decline through that period. And then you can see what happens in 06. The monthly payment starts to really go down, which is largely a function of both prices correcting in 08, as well as interest rates continuing to go down. We thought they were low in the mid 2000s. The average rate was about 6%. Now it's about 4%. So it's significantly below where it was, even when we thought they were at historic lows in the 2000s. Okay, so with rates going down and prices going down, this is what you have. Look at like where the 2018 dot is for Bergen County. All right, it's about $2,500 in today's dollars. That is a little higher than it's been for the last 7 years because prices have come up a little bit. All right, and interest rates have crept up just the tiniest bit. They're down in 19, but in 18 they were up a little bit. All right. But look where it is from a historical perspective. Look at where that monthly payment in today's dollars you would have paid to buy that average priced home in Bergen County. You would have been paying over $4,000 in 2005. Even if you go back to the bottom of the last market, it was around $2,500 in 96, 97. And if you go back to the tail end of the last seller's market, it was over $4,500 in today's prices. So the effect of inflation, people think like, prices, inflation does affect prices. Rates affect your monthly payment. So right now, the reason I bring this up is because the monthly payment required to buy a home in Bergen County is lower than it has been at any time for the last 30 years, since 1985. I mean, it's a little higher than it was for the last 5 years or 6 years, just a little bit, but it's way below where it was at the height of the market as a function of both prices coming down and rates coming down. And you can see the other counties. We've got Passaic County going back to 94. And again, the monthly payment is lower than at any time except really for the last couple of years. You see the same thing in Sussex. The only outlier is Hudson because prices have been going up so dramatically because Hudson is adjacent to Manhattan where the market has been going crazy until the last year or so. So in Hudson, the homes are, the monthly payment's more than it was for the last, any time in the last 10 years. but it's still probably low from a historical perspective if you were to go back 20 years, just because rates are so much lower than they used to be. Let's look at the New York region. You see the same thing. We have Westchester going back all the way to 1981. You can see it's the same basic rhythm. It goes up in the 80s, down in the 90s, up in the 2000s, then it falls off a cliff when the financial crisis hits, and then it continues to go down a little bit because prices have been flat and maybe down a little bit, and so inflation has made them, as inflation adjusted number, they're lower, but also because rates have just continued to go down. And although we don't have numbers for these other counties going back as far as Westchester, you can see that those graphs really do behave in tandem. The prices are going about the same rate, and obviously interest rates are the same in each county. And so the monthly payment to buy a home in any of these markets is a little higher than it was a couple of years ago, but is way below where it was from a historical perspective. And that's for single-family homes. Here's Westchester in the Hudson Valley for condominiums. We only have that number going back to 2005, but you can see it's really the same situation. It's a little higher than it's been for the last few years because prices have started to come up a little bit, but it's way below where it was at the height of the last market. So the basic idea is that the monthly payment required to buy a home in our markets is lower than it's been in a generation. Some caveats though. We're only measuring the monthly mortgage payment. Affordability, if you're going to look at it from more of a, strict perspective, it also includes property taxes. It also includes insurance rates. It includes maintenance costs. If any of those things go up disproportionately, then they're going to make homes less affordable, even if the monthly payment is lower. And obviously, affordability as a true measure, you have to look at the average wages in a market, because it might be the monthly payment has gone down, but wages have not gone up in any meaningful way, which makes it that much harder to afford the home. If, for example, wages from an inflation control perspective were down in a particular county where they were 20 years ago. And we're going to look to try to get some of that data. If you have access to that data and you want to share it with us, we're happy to work with you to try to come up with some graphs that show a truer vision of affordability. But purely from a mortgage payment perspective, homes are more affordable than they've been any time in the last 30 years, except maybe for the last couple of years where they've ticked up just a little bit. From a historical perspective, though, home buyers should really love this, because what it means is that because prices have not yet rebounded from the highs of 2004, 2005, and because interest rates are at historical lows even below where they were 10 years ago, homes right now, they're really, prices are really attractive right now to buy a home. Compared to where they've been from a historical perspective. So I hope you got something out of this. Hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, contact your Rand Realty agent or reach out to me. I'm Joe Rand. I look forward to hearing from you, and thank you so much for watching.